Yes, yes. Welcome to the ancient world of tabletop games. I am Agamemnon, from the historical documentary, Time Bandits. This is a report from a fugitive. This is a game check-up video. I'm not here to strangle myself in cellophane or fill the streets with the noise of 1,000 box farts. Away with unboxings. Staring at this pile of games, I'm left wondering if everything in there is in there. Let's wade through the rising tide of playing pieces and find out. Why so many games? No, I didn't back the retailer pledge on Kickstarter. There wasn't one. Instead, there was an insane Kickstarter pledge level for a 3D resin map of the alien base. I decided against that, partly on grounds of cost, mostly on the matter of storage, and I also took filming the bloody thing into consideration. I have one copy of Alone for filming purposes. Copy 2 goes to another player. The third copy will feature as a giveaway on the channel. As I'm giving a copy away, I must make doubly sure, trebly sure, that all the bits and pieces are present and they are all good enough to send out to one lucky winner. If something's missing or way off, I'll dive into the ocean of customer support. Alone is a twist on the one against many game. It's a many against one game instead. Usually one evil player battles several heroic hunters. Letters from Whitechapel, Fury of Dracula. In this game, 3 evil players manage the inhabitants of a hostile planet. The lone heroic player is out to survive against the odds. Here are mini map boards for the evil players. Hidden information, charted by game counters, will taunt the hero from the shadows. The lone player's equivalent, the hero display board, tracks vital resources and other handy scraps of knowledge. That board might just be the least glossy thing in this game. With so much hidden information in the game, it's vital that the heroic player has this player board to help track phantoms and spooks and shadows out there in the gloom. I won't be showing you every single component in the game out of every single box here. I will take out a few figures from each of the games to show you some of the production issues. Slightly warped figures, that's about it. Here's the super glossy player screen. This is a Dungeon Master or Game Master screen with the unusual role of keeping information secure for up to 3 players crowded at one end of the table. Material printed here is repeated on glossy game reference cards for ease of bandying about. I had difficulty showing cards off. Gloss again. The game is powered by evil player cards and equipment cards. Without blinding you under the glare of the Stalagluft 3 spotlights, I'll show a few of these to you. For a video that's just under 20 minutes, I filmed an hour and a quarter of footage, trying to deal with the sheer shininess of the bits and pieces. This is a problem from a video production standpoint. There's nothing wrong with putting a gloss on game components. My battle is with 3 studio lights and a camera. If I keep the lights out of the reflective surfaces, invariably I find the camera rig's reflection bouncing off cards instead. For gameplay, I'd create a more elaborate video setup to minimize those problems. So much shiny plastic, and so much glossy material. The game is packed with it. Unfortunately, a lot of the material in this game uses the science fiction cliché of a dark background with white lettering on it, and I just let it go on the Kickstarter. Personally, I thought that the design team was hell-bent on sticking to the science fiction cliché. There was no way anyone would convince them to change. But it's not inclusive. It does not aid visually impaired gamers, and I wish game manufacturers would simply just fucking stop it. You know, it's not clever, it's not funny, it's not helping people who have difficulty reading. I've said in the past that, how to put this without filling the video with swearing? Fuck it. It's okay to do silent movie intertitles in a black background with white text in a limited form. but do not clothe your game in it. It's very science fiction-y, very cliched science fiction-y. Just say no, kids. Just say no. Don't do it. Use a cream or off-white background with dark text and make the game more inclusive for people who have extreme difficulty with whatever visual problems they have. We come to one of the problem areas of game production. These insert trays for the figures, they are too tightly matched to the figures themselves, meaning you'll exert an unexpected degree of force to prise the figure from the tray. In the case of the robot with its own plastic stand, that's awkward. There is no way to paint these figures and store them in the trays provided. Clicking the figures into place or hauling them out will abrade the paint job, rendering the storage unusable. Here's a figure with one of those strange weapons that wouldn't be out of place in a Star Trek episode featuring trial by combat. The sort of Klingon thing that would kill anyone if they picked it up, just to show how hard Klingons really are. And in this case, you can see that this one is severely bent over, and it only took a few seconds of dipping it into hot water to fix that. The plastic's memory kicked in, turning to the identical figure from box 2 that's a little bit warped and again easily fixed. Moving on to the identical figure from box 3, that one looks as if it's straight head on, but from above, looking at it top down, there was a little bit of warping, and that again was just fixed by dipping it into the hot water. Now here we have these counter trays. They're going to hold, well, technically all of the counters, but I've split some of the counters off into bags that came with the game. And there's one of the bags there. It holds these stands for the cardboard doors. These stands are very tight, and the other bag there for the dice. Yes, those are very tight, and you will degrade the cardboard doors. If you keep taking the cardboard doors out of the stands and putting them back in, you're going to degrade the pieces. Just slot them in and leave them in. Glossy, glossy, glossy cards. The reference material that's printed on the evil screen. It is an evil screen. I will return to that topic shortly. Again, nothing wrong with glossy cards. It's fine. Quite good production values, actually. From my viewpoint, here I'm fighting glare on the right of the screen, and over on the left there you can see the shadow. Now you're seeing it a bit more on those cards. You're seeing either glare from the spotlight or the shadow, very dim reflection of the camera head and its rig. I wouldn't be filming like this. I'd be using slightly different camera sliders and angles to minimize the gloss in gameplay. But here I'm just looking at components. And after faffing about filming for an hour and cutting it down to like 20 minutes of footage, I'd had enough. It's not a reflection, pun intended, on the quality of the game design. Everything's glossy. These rulebooks here are glossy. And yes, sadly, it's white text on a variety of backgrounds, and it's not so easy to read for the visually impaired. People talk a lot about inclusivity in games. Well, make sure people can read stuff and then they are included in those games. That's massive, that scenario book. Here's the rule book, and there, yes, it actually says in the game component listing, and it's always nice to see one, evil screen. There it is. It is an evil screen. And you're supposed to have 3 nasty players hiding behind it, gloating at you as you are alone. Okay. Component listings are essential in rulebooks. Please put them in. Don't leave them out. There's the massive scenario book. It's so tightly packed in there when you first get the game that it's very difficult to get out. I use a vacuum pen to lift it up. You don't see that here. It's just off to the top right. You'll see it in a few other shots. I plan on using the vacuum pen to move fiddly game components or crowded game components for ease of play when filming, just to make things a bit easier. Here we have the cardboard sheets and a slight production issue there. By God, that's a glossy, glossy book, isn't it? The counters are a little offset. Let's whip them all out and punch the hell out of them. They punch out easily enough. They're good quality. But yes, the counters are a little offset in the printing there. It's a minor production issue. I don't give a damn about it. I'm not sending back 3 copies of a game just because a counter is a little off to the side. Okay, the cardboard doors. I'm probably going to replace those with plastic ones. I'll buy them in. But if you want to, you can use those stands. For filming top down, as I do, right now we're coming into focus. That's a very, very tight clamp. You might want to put a very thin coin in there to open it up so you can get the cardboard in without abrading it. But yes, if I'm filming top down, I might just put those on the board without stands so that you get that effect. Nice enough, but be wary when you're putting those in. It's much better to have a tight stand than a loose one, obviously. Okay, cardboard. These tiles are divided into light side and dark side, depending on whether or not the player managed to get some illumination going. And I'm just rattling through them at high speed. Slight production issue. Again, the print registry is a little off. If you're flipping these over, they don't quite match up those like stripy lines from one tile to another. And print registry is a bit of a problem in this production run. Nice enough tiles, and definitely adding to the atmosphere of the game, of being in the gloom. And if you're lucky to put the lights on, maybe you don't want to put the lights on and discover things in that room. But plenty of tiles. I just didn't feel the need to buy the 3D resin versions of these. I thought I would have issues filming them. Storage is the main thing with 3D resin products like dungeon walls and things like that. You just don't have somewhere to store the damn things. Okay, counters going in to these trays. I didn't put all of the counters in there. Mostly they are big piles of very similar counters, and then there are one or two specialized counters, and I just put them in the bags. I don't intend to keep the dice in the bag that came with the game. There are the dice. Again, if you look very closely, the printing registry is a tiny bit off, and some of those faces there, they're not quite printed centrally. It's no big deal. If it ruins your game, well, you've got higher standards than I have. Counters. You can see there, the counters are fine. Bit off to the side. Okay, I put the other specialized counters in those bags just for ease of setup. Right, those I don't think I will use. I probably won't even store them in the game box. I might use them for something else. And there's your doors again. With 3 copies of the game in front of me, I found this position in the tray held a warped base in all 3 versions, hinting at a problem in the production run as a whole. That position is one of the hardest to haul a figure from. The figure warped with time, trapped in storage, too tight to take the piece. And there he is, he's wobbling away. You can see it's quite distinct. Now, dropping that into hot water a few times fixed the job. So there we have, you can see, trying to show off the curve there. It's not great, is it? But easily fixed. So let's try to put everything back in the box. Does it all fit in the box? Yes, it does. Except for the cardboard framework that all came in. Some game designers allow for that, so you can shove it at the bottom and everything doesn't flop about loose. But here that's not the case. So I don't put everything in the box. I forget to put in the evil screen. It is so evil that it escaped, tried to run free. Ah, the vacuum pen. Bit of a specialized tool, but it could come in handy for gameplay that is in extremely crowded boards or fiddly cards. Okay, there's the vacuum pen. It's easier to get the scenario book out from there now that everything is rearranged, and in goes the evil screen. It's so much easier to get that big glossy book in and out. I don't need the vacuum pen there. So let's turn to the extra bits and pieces that came with the Kickstarter. A few extra figures. There's the cardboard frame, and it doesn't fit in the box anymore. You can set that aside. Some games allow you to put all that at the bottom to give a tighter fit for all the components once you've punched out the cardboard counters, but that's not the case here. You just can't store everything in there, with the cardboard frames as well. Box after box there, packed with figures. Speaking of figures and some of the expansion stuff that came with the Kickstarter, extra figures and a few extra cards and one additional player reference map for the evil players. That's what's in the bonus Kickstarter stuff. You know, the sniper miniature, the anti-grav, a few other things. So one box with 4 figures in it, struggling again with the glare of so many reflective surfaces in this game. I think they just decided to go, the hell with it, we'll make everything shiny, even the boxes. Okay, this one contains one map sheet. And here we have the figures. The bases are more or less flat, and the guns aren't warped. They're fine there. Again, if you have any warping going on, just use the hot water. You'll be fine. Okay, let's look at that map. In the main game, the maps are solid. A few bonus cards there. Yes, the evil player reference maps are solid and double-sided. In this little expansion, the map is folded up like a miniature game board almost. There it is. This is map K1, K2, and it's just handy for a few extra scenarios. And counters are deployed on that behind the evil screens so that the evil players know where everything is. The heroic human player has to guess. So from one box of figures to the other box, look at how solid those figures stay in there. It's over-designed. There's no two ways about it. I would have preferred shells that were a little looser and easier to drop figures in and take them back out of. And there you have all of these wonderful little miniatures. Okay, here are our three very different weapons that are all now very similar after being straightened out in hot water. And from the rear, those rear sections, those blades they're wearing on their back, they were a little warped as well, but they came out okay. They just returned to their memory. Now here we have bases that were so warped. They're far less warped now, and they'll do just fine. Trickier to flatten out, but I managed it with water a couple of times. There's that fellow almost from an episode of Star Trek. Oh, fight me and our civilization will beat your civilization. We'll just have one warrior fighting another. Sounds like a Fred Brown story to me. I'm pretty sure, okay, without looking it up, I think that is the basis of the Star Trek episode where Kirk goes and chucks rocks around the desert. So, yes, you're seeing all of these figures from the different games, and it is always a production problem. Anyone who has a spear or some kind of long rifle as a figure risks warping. There's a solution for dealing with warped figures, and it's an easy one. Boil a kettle and pour water into a bowl or a large cup. Let the water cool a little. Have another cup handy with cold water in it. Dip the affected area of the warped figure in hot water for a few seconds, then remove it. Have a look at it. The plastic attempts to return to its original casting shape. Let it do that, then dip the figure in the cold water. You shouldn't need to use tweezers to alter the plastic. If you don't see much change first time around, dip the piece in hot water again. The same applies to the bases, though this is a little trickier. I had to dip the warped base in hot water. Make sure there wasn't an air bubble underneath. That's why it's worth using a clear bowl, so you can see how the piece fares in hot water. At first, I let the plastic warm up without altering it. Try to let as much change happen naturally as possible. On the second attempt, I brought the piece out and sat it on a flat surface. Then I pressed lightly on the base before dipping the piece in cold water. No tweezers were used at any stage to fix any of these warped figures. You should not need to risk mutilating the plastic by using tweezers in any of these cases.